In this project, we'll build a resume landing page with a button that opens a print dialog. Then we'll style the print layout using a media query. No frameworks, just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript from scratch. This project was originally built live, and it's also my first time using CSS Grid. You'll see me reference my notes while building the layout, and I've edited the footage to focus entirely on the real work: the layout, the styles, JavaScript, and how I actually build in real time. I've removed the live chat except for moments directly related to the project. Happy coding! So let's go ahead and create an index.html and a style.css. The first thing that I'm going to do is write all of the HTML from top to bottom. That's what I do first. I don't think I'm going to do this big space here at the top with this H, and I'm going to use a dark blue background. I'm going to use this navy blue color as my background, and we'll just use white text for everything else. All right. So I'm going to call this the resume landing page. Here we go. So I think we can call this the header and the H1. And then everything else is going to live inside of main. And then I'm going to put contact and our social media icons in the footer. So we're just going to have an H1 inside of our header, and I think that is fine. So we'll do header with a class of header, main with a class of main, and footer with a class of footer. And then we'll do an H1 primary heading. Hello, my name is Angela. All right, and then I'm going to do 2 paragraphs. So we'll do a paragraph and we'll do some lorem ipsum, and then we'll do another paragraph and we'll do just a slightly less lorem ipsum. Yeah. Oh, we probably want to put this inside of a section. The class of, we'll just give it a class of intro. Intro text. And then we'll do a section for employment, a section for education, a section for selected projects. Maybe we do want contact to be a section inside main. And then in the footer, we can have our social icons, and we'll do like a little copyright statement. That's always a good idea. Yeah, that makes sense. And then each of our resume items, so employment, education, selected projects, I'm going to even contact, I'm going to set these up like kind of a sidebar. Yeah, so these will be H2s, employment, education, selected projects, contact. Those will be H2s. And then the names of the, so these would be probably the positions, right? The positions held, or no, are these the names? Wait, London Inc. Art Director. So it's the company and the position. Uber, Chief Creative Officer. Apple Inc. Designer. Okay, well, these can be H3s. And then we've got dates up here. So we'll use the time attribute with the date, the time element with the date time attribute. And then let's confirm that we are putting in the correct information in the attribute for this date format. Yeah, that works. Okay, that makes sense to me. So I'm going to do a section with a class. I guess I'm just going to give it a class of grid container. Let's just call it what it is. And then I'm going to do an H2 with a class of secondary heading. This would be employment. And H2 is a block level element, just like a div or an article. I mean, semantically it's different, it has different meaning, but structurally it is a block level element. So we can style that as part of the grid. It doesn't need to be in a container unless we get into the styling and figure out that it works better in a container. I'm not going to do that now. And then each of these can be articles. And these probably would need to be in a container. So we'll do a div of grid items. And then we'll do an article of item. And then we've got the time element, date time. I'm going to leave that blank for now, but let's look at the documentation on MDM and see what that needs to be. Well, I guess we could do that now. 2015 to present. 2015 to present. Okay, MDN time. It may represent one of the following: a time on a 24-hour clock, a precise date in the Gregorian calendar with optional time and time zone information, a valid time duration. So here's how we've been using date time in other projects with a month, day, year. Here's the time. 2 hours, 30 minutes. So here's a duration. Okay, that's what they were talking about. A yearless date string, a date string, a month string, time, durations, week, just four. Okay, so just years. So maybe we want to do this. But except this would be a span. Time is an inline element, so we could also use span, and then we'll just say to present. I'm going to put that in the span, and I'm going to use an M dash. So yeah, that makes sense to me. So we'll use a time element for both dates, and then we'll use a span for the dash. And we might end up putting this in its own container. And we'll just call it duration. And we'll do an H3. London Ink Art Director. And then just a paragraph, and we'll do some lorem ipsum. Yeah, this works. So we have 3 of those. I mean, everything is styled pretty much the same here, right? So once we get these kind of core styles down, everything else should fall into place. So 2011 to 2015. Uber Chief Creative Officer. this is 2009 to 2011. And then that is Apple Ink Designer. All right, that's our first section. So I think that we can just do another grid container, right? And then this is education. And so this is kind of funny, but I actually went to school at Metropolitan State University for 2 degrees. So I thought that was kind of funny. Let's take this. We don't need these. And 2006 to 2009. Whoops. I spelled that wrong. Metro, I'm just going to do Metro State University because that's where I went. London Ink, Uber, Apple. Wait a second. Did I spell something wrong? Apple Ink Designer, Uber Chief Creative Officer, London Ink Art Director. There we go. And then all right, selected projects. I am going to copy this section again. And we don't really have the duration or a title anymore. I think we just basically have a grid of images. I do think it would be a good idea to put like fig captions. Let's at least put a fig caption with each of these. So we'll do figure with the class of figure. I usually name my figures with the class of image, and I've gone back and reviewed some of my previous work, and I'm like, I feel like that could be confusing. So I'm going to start doing figure with the class of figure, just like I do header with the class of header, and footer with the class of footer, and main with the class of main. So I think that makes more sense. And then we'll go ahead and do an image. I don't usually give my images class names because I often don't need to. And then we'll do a fig caption. And we'll say project name. Project name goes here. Super original. I'm just going to grab 6 random images. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Easy peasy. So you would probably want to do like screenshots or something, right? And the way I style images, the image can be any aspect ratio, any size. These are optimized. So these are fairly well optimized. But if you understand how to style images with CSS, you can use any aspect ratio and still get the image size you want to display on your page. So I like when I do these projects to grab different aspect ratios to show people that. So put a little bit of alt text here. It's not very good alt text, but that's what I have for now. Okay. I think that we can just copy this and then we'll replace those images so they're not all the same. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. And then we have a contact section. I'm going to copy this again. And I think we just need an H2, an H3, and an email. So we don't need that. And then I do generally put my links inside of paragraphs, especially if they're meant to live on one line, because anchor elements by default are inline elements and paragraphs are block level elements. So this would be mail to, and I'll put my email address in here. Whoops. So there's our contact information. And then in our footer, we'll go ahead and say copyright, copy. We'll do a little bit of JavaScript to make a dynamic date. So we'll say ID, date, and let's check and see how our page looks. So far, so good. Look at that. Look at our date ranges. They're perfect. They're beautiful. There's all our images. Let's also, for our mail to link, let's have this target blank, so it doesn't take people off the page. It opens a new tab. And then let's go and grab some icons. So I'm going to grab Instagram, I usually do Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and GitHub. And then we're going to grab a printer icon. And for that, I like to use Ionicons, open source. So here's Pinterest. Do LinkedIn. And we'll do Instagram. All right. And then down here, I do treat this as navigation because it's a set of links that takes you someplace, right? So I'll give the nav with the class of social nav. And I'll put this in an unordered list, and these will be list items, and we'll give this a class of social item. And then I will do an anchor. And we'll fill those in. And then we have an SVG. So we'll start with GitHub. And on my SVGs, I always say aria hidden true. Whoops. Aria hidden true. Because SVGs are decorative and we don't want a screen reader to come along and read this. So we're hiding them from the screen reader. But we do still want the screen reader to call out what that icon is. So we're going to have a class called access hidden. And this is, what is this? We said GitHub, right? Yep, this is GitHub. And then we also, next to social item, we'll do a class of GitHub. And this will be for styling. We'll go ahead and grab some brand colors and make sure that on hover, we see a brand color for these particular icons, but we need a unique class in order to do that. Yep, and that is what that is going to look like. So let's get the rest of these filled in. So we'll do GitHub, do Pinterest, and we'll make sure this is aria hidden true. We'll do Instagram. We'll also make sure this is aria hidden true. And then we'll do LinkedIn. And this is also aria hidden true. And Instagram, Pinterest, GitHub. And we also, I forgot to get the printer icon. So we need print right here. And we're going to say print resume. And then this button will write a little bit of JavaScript. So when people click that, it triggers the browser print dialog. Let's see, print. And we will also make sure that we have a print media query because we're going to have, we're going to have a navy blue background with white text, and we don't want people to print that, right? We don't want people using all their ink on a dark background and trying to print with the white text. That just doesn't work well. So we want to make sure that we are adjusting our styles, the colors at the very least, to make sure that people are able to print appropriately, and we'll just see how it goes. This may be a great layout once we adjust the styles and trigger the print dialog. And I have a printer. So we are going to print and review. We're going to print and review, but that print dialog box is for a PDF or a printer. So we're going to do both. We're going to print and we're going to save as a PDF. So it's going to be amazing. You're going to love it. Okay, so I think we have all of our icons now. That went really fast. We're only like 45 minutes into this. So yeah, there we go. Let's start getting our base CSS set up. Let's start getting our base CSS set up because we are done with our HTML. Yes, we are. And actually, before we start with any CSS, let's commit. Trying to be better about committing more often. I'm going to add that though first to the git ignore. HTML for layout. All right. So there's that. I don't think we need that. I don't think we need that. Yeah, let's start with our base styles, our base CSS styles. So let's go ahead and use root to define some colors. So we'll do white. And for this, I'm actually going to use a super soft gray. I'm not going to use a pure white. And then I will, do we need, I mean, I don't think we need black, right? So let's just do navy. And that is this hex code right here. I mean, what else do we really need? So this is kind of this orangey red color for the link. Let's check and see if that's accessible against our navy blue background. So let's go to the web aim contrast checker. Here's our background, which is that navy blue. And then we need a color picker here. There we go. Kind of, oh, stop. Ooh, yeah, that does not, that fails. So I think we can just make it work on our own though, right? So that passes. That passes for everything except AAA normal text, which this is not. This is definitely large text, and so this is how this would look. And we don't have to use this. That would pass for the AA standard. What if we did decide to use black? I don't like it though. And it's only one link. So I really wanted to use navy blue. So maybe we ought to just choose something else altogether. Like a nice bright pink. That totally fails. We could do that. I like that actually. I like pink. Pink it is. We'll see how it looks, right? I'm happy with how this looks. We'll make sure that it has an underline. I think it's the only color, literally the only color on the entire page, other than the hover colors for the icons, which I am less concerned about, but we'll check the contrast for those as well. Because yeah, we'll check the contrast for those as well, and we will make those work. So we'll do pink. I would recommend that you don't sacrifice accessibility. Don't sacrifice accessibility. It shouldn't be an option at this point. It should be a requirement. So Pinterest, red. Let's check the accessibility. Let's just get it over with. This is our foreground. That fails across the board. Maybe we just need to find, maybe not every color needs to be branded. Maybe we just find one color we like and we use it. Because I like this pink color too, and it does pass the AA standard for graphical objects and elements. And I would be down for using this for the email address and for all of the icons. I do like this pink color. Yeah. So executive decision. We're just going to go with one color. So that's our color palette: white, navy blue, and pink. Keeps it nice and simple. Okay, so base styles. First, the HTML element. We're going to do box sizing, border box. And then we'll do a wildcard for before and after pseudo classes. And we will also say box sizing, border box. And then on our body, these are the base styles that I like to use. I say padding 0, margin 0. Oh, and you know what else we need to do? We need to do a browser reset. We'll do that next. So we'll say padding 0, margin 0. We need to pick a font. So let's go to Google Fonts. Whoops. And on our last project, we used a font called Outfit, which I loved. I really, really enjoyed using this font. So I want to use this font again. So we'll get the embed code. Put that up here. And then we will also link to our style sheet, which is style.css. And then let's do a browser reset called normalize.css. And we'll grab that as well. Look at this. Google is literally saying here, you visit often. Adorable. Right, and I really don't change normalize. I just put it in, and that works well for me. I used to go through and change normalize and redo some of the styles, and I don't anymore. So we want to make sure that our fonts are linked first, then our browser reset, and then our style.css, because specificity and cascade and the cascade more than inheritance say that when it's checking which styles to apply, it's going to check to see, one of the criteria is where does it fall. So if it comes last, it kind of wins the style. So and then we'll go ahead for our font family. We'll come back to Google, and our font family is, I'm just going to copy all of this right here. So our font family is Outfit, font optical sizing auto, font weight 400, font style normal, but we are loading everything in that family. So we have, because we loaded this now, we have access to everything in the family. And then I always say font size 100%. And I personally always set a line height of 1.65. I do often change the line height for a lot of my headings, but for paragraph text, I tend to do a line height of 1.65, and that works well for me. Okay, some other things that I like to do, for figures, I will always just do some base styles, margin 0, because I always have to take the margin off of figures. And I use figure tags every time I use images. I use figure tags. For images, which are by default display inline, I always change it to display block. I always do a max width of 100% and a height of auto. That makes your response images nice and responsive. For paragraphs, whoops. I always change the margin to 0 on top, 0 on the left and right, 1 rem on the bottom. And I've just started doing paragraph last of type margin 0. So that last paragraph, or if it's the only paragraph, it's always margin 0. What else do I usually do? Where is my GitHub? I feel like I'm forgetting something. This is the last project we worked on. Oh yeah, SVGs I always end up changing to display block. Those are display inline by default. And then we'll go ahead and set our link styles and link states as well. All right. I think we're done with that. Okay, so our anchor elements are going to be color, var. Oh, I forgot to set the background color and font color on the body. We'll do that next. Pink. And I'm undecided. Well, okay, we have to decide what our hover is going to be. Maybe text decoration, none. And I'm just going to do a border, bottom, 2 pixels, solid, transparent. And then we're going to do focus, hover, active. We'll say border, bottom 2 pixels, and this will be pink. And then let's do a transition. Border bottom, 300 milliseconds. Ease in, out. Yeah. All right. And then of course we need let's do color first. So our color is going to be white. And our background color is going to be navy. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I do like the pink. Kind of a salmon-y pink, right? Okay, and then let's make our SVGs display block. I think we could do, we could just do a lot of our SVG styles right here. Nice. Oh, and then let's do our access hidden. To go back and find that again. And so if you haven't used access hidden styles before, I have to copy and paste it every time. I never remember. These are styles that hide elements, text, whatever, in a screen reader friendly way. So now anything that we want to hide visually, but we still want a screen reader to call out, we can just give it a class of access hidden. And for anybody who is watching, if this is your first time here, welcome. We are happy to have you. This channel had like 100+ new subscribers in the last week. That's a lot for a small channel, so thank you for that. And do me a favor, if you have not liked the video yet, please go ahead and do so we can push this type of content out to more people who might enjoy front-end development. And I would appreciate it so much. So now on the body, I'm going to do pretty much what I learned in the Brad Traversy tutorial that I took this morning on Grid. So we'll do display grid. And then he did this grid template areas. And then I understand FR to mean fractions. So that makes sense to me. Where's our, hang on. Oh, let's get this back up. So I think our header is going to go all the way across. I think this section is also going to go all the way across. And then I think we have 2 columns. So within our sections, oh, so we probably don't need grid on the body then, do we? So I think we would have grid on I think we would have grid on, I don't even think we need it on main. I think we just need grid container on our sections. Hence the name grid container. So display grid. And then grid template areas. Do we even need that though? Well, I want the secondary heading to be on the left, and I want the grid items to be on the right. There's actually not too much to do here. Maybe we could just do grid template columns. Kind of feeling like that might be all we need. So maybe we would do 2 FR, 4 FR. But we do need to make sure that main, well, we could do that on the body. So let's do a max width of 75 rems, which means we need margin 0 auto. There we go. I think we need to pull this in a lot more though. No. Actually, I don't think we do. So I'm on a pretty big monitor. So here we are at 100%. Actually, this is perfect, isn't it? That was really easy. Do we even need to do anything else with grid? Well, we'll do the actual image gallery. Yeah, okay. So here's our grid container for the images, and then grid items right here. So we want to, I think we need to give this a different, yeah, this does not need to be, let's change our markup here for the images. So we don't need this article. And instead of grid items, let's call this grid images. So I disagree with this. In the case of a section element with the class intro text, I recommend using a plain div instead. Since the section doesn't include a heading, it doesn't fulfill the semantic purpose of a section. I disagree. I don't think a heading is required inside of a section. I think you can still use a section even without a heading. As the documentation points out, each section should contain a heading to define its role in the document structure. Otherwise, it's better to use a non-semantic container like div. The generic section element. The section element represents a generic standalone section of a document which doesn't have a more specific semantic element to represent it. Sections should always have a heading, with very few exceptions. All right. Well, I stand corrected. I will always admit when I'm wrong. Clearly, I have not read the documentation. Sections should always have a heading with very few exceptions. Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected. I stand corrected. I will change it to a div. I will change it to a div. Building in public. Building in public. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn and collaborate with one another. And I'll admit when I make a mistake or I get something wrong. So thank you for letting us know about that. Okay, so let's get these images styled. Right here. So we changed this to grid container and we have grid images. But let's go ahead and just get our images together here. So we already took the margin off. Let's see what the aspect ratio is here. So it's like 370 by 288. So it's 1.28 to 1. So we're going to say we'll do grid images. What did Brad Traversy say to do here? So grid template columns, I think we can just do so this would be 2, 1 FR. So grid template columns. Repeat 2, 1 FR. And then I'll do width, percent, height. What do we say? 1.28. I'll do width 100%, height 100%, object fit cover. And bear with me if I got the grid wrong. It's my first time. Where are we? There we go. Look at that. And let's give it some gap. Yep, we can do a gap. And I don't think we need to worry about justifying the content at all since everything's going to be the same size. Look at that. Let's give it a bigger gap. Okay, now you're in my way. I love it. I love it. Yeah, we can tell our H2s have a lot of padding, or margin rather. So, all right, so far so good. So I want to see how things are shaking out here. Oh yeah, we probably want to do start. So for the grid container, I think we do want to do a line item start because he did say it was stretch by default. Yeah, look at that, already made it more aligned. I love it. And then let's put some margin after each section. So our sections are called grid container. They're all called grid container. So we'll just say margin, and it's a lot of space here. So I'm just going to be very generous, and we can adjust that later if we need to. Wow, so far so good. And then let's take, oh, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. And then on our secondary heading, let's get rid of that margin. Right here. And I'm just going to say margin 2 rems on the bottom. Yeah. And then let's also make sure that, let's do a text transform, uppercase, and we'll do some letter spacing and be pretty generous with that as well. Ooh, too much. Let's do 2.5. Love it. And then let's make sure H3s. Font size, this is pretty generous. Bigger than the H2s, which is completely fine, and bold. So I'm going to say font size 3 rems. Font weight, we can try 700. Let's try 2 rems. What are my choices? Let's go back to Google Fonts. $900. Let's try that. We're not getting, did we not load everything? I thought we loaded everything. Ah, full access. We did not load everything. All right. There we go. I actually really like that. Let's try 800. Let's go back to 800. I really like this outfit font. Yep, that works. Let's give it, I feel like it needs a tiny bit of letter spacing. Just like 1 pixel. I don't know if that's, nope, that's perfect. I love it. Let's put a little space now in between each article. So we'll say item, margin, look at this. I love it. I love it. I think our H2s could be a little smaller. So let's change the font size. Let's see what the font size currently is. So again, checking the user agent style sheet, the browser by default gives it 1.5 ems, and we are using rems. We are using relative ems. So we'll do font size, and I'm going to say 1.25 rems. Yeah, that looks much better. Thank you, Go Elmo Go, and thank you for the suggestion to use Grid. I definitely think that this was, I mean, I think as much as I like Flexbox, and I think as good as I am at using Flexbox, I think I've struggled with some of my Flexbox layouts because there is some complexity when you have to set all the justify content and align items and things like that. This was clearly very simple. This was a lot simpler. All right, let's give our header a little more space. Normally I take all of the margin off of our H1s, but actually I am going to do it this time too, because I think it's better to have padding on the header. And I think I'm going to move my heading styles up. I'm going to put them right here. I'm going to say margin 0. And we'll say header. Padding. Maybe pretty generous with the padding. So let's say 5 rems on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right. So we have a little squish for mobile. Oh, and actually, we should put that someplace else. We'll do 0 for now. And let's make this a little bit bigger. So we'll say font size. I mean, it's a little big, isn't it? There, I think that's a little better. And then on our intro text div, let's give that a little bit of margin. We'll say margin. I think we did 5 rems on everything else. We'll do that here as well. Yeah, that looks great. And then let's get our footer whipped into shape here. Whoops. I wonder if we maybe don't want to have that much padding up there. Yeah. So let's add margin back to the bottom of the heading, but just keep padding on the top. I love it. I wonder if we want to make this text a little bit bigger for our paragraphs. It feels a little bit small to me. So maybe we just bump it up a little bit to 1.1 rems. Yeah, that looks a little better. I also think that this text at the top of the page should not actually span the entire width of the page. Although it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger here in the intro, isn't it? So let's maybe try to just bump the intro text up. I think it could be a little bigger even than that. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, let's get our, I feel like a squirrel, a dog who sees a squirrel. So this is now our social nav. So I think for the social nav, we could, so did we say that we weren't going to use any Flexbox on this project? Or just that we were going to do grid for the layout? Although we could probably just, if we know we have 5 items, can I use, is it okay if I use Flexbox for the social nav? Because I think I'm going to. Actually be social nav UL. So we'll say list style type. Okay, good. So I'm not breaking any, what am I trying to say here? I'm not breaking any rules that you and I set up, Go Elmo Go. I'm allowed to use Flexbox for the social navigation. Thank you, I appreciate that. So we'll say margin 0, padding 0, and display flex. There we go. So why is one pink and not the others? What's going on here? Probably because how much you want to bet this has like a style that's stroke current color. Okay, so this has a stroke, so I'm just going to take that out. So the stroke should be white. And if it has fill, the fill should be white. Yeah, that works. And then we'll take out the stroke current color here as well. There we go. We might not, this might not be a good idea to do this right on this element. I feel like just changing the display property is what we should do here. And we should be a little more specific about these other styles. So social item, yeah. Social item, SVG. Okay. And then let's make sure that these are justify content, I guess center. And let's give these a gap of 1 rem. There we go. And I think our footer needs some padding. Whoops. So we'll say padding. We'll do 5 rems and 0 on the left and right. There we go. And then let's just do text align center for all of those inline elements. There we go. And then I think we do need to make sure that our footer paragraph, let's see here. I took the margin off of that particular paragraph, so I think what I'll do is I'll just put some margin here. So let's just do 2 rems on the top. And then I don't have to reverse engineer that. Yeah, that works. This looks like it's aligned on the left with the content, but I'm just going to center justify it for the footer. So I'm not going to worry about that. And then let's make sure that this, so let's just give this paragraph its own class and its kind of own set of styles. So we'll say a class of contact email. Put that here. Say font size 2 rems. There we go. And I think this has a different class, so it doesn't get the margin. Oh no, it does have. All right, what's happening with my images? I knew this was too easy. Okay, I don't remember what Brad Traversy told me about. Where is... Here we go. Grid template columns. I want 2 columns. Group images right here. Is it because I have a gap here? Is that why that? No. So clearly we're overflowing our container. Okay. I have a grid of images and I'm using CSS Grid. Here's my grid container, but the images are overflowing. Okay. Here's with the 100% height auto display block. Here's what I have. The figure is maintaining its aspect ratio, but depending on how it's placed in the grid, a few things could go wrong. Grid items don't shrink by default. If figure isn't behaving as expected inside grid images, it might be because of content sizing or implicit widths. No max width on the grid container. If grid images doesn't have a max width or isn't constrained by a parent, it might grow too wide and cause overflow. Max width 100% on grid images. So does anything else, is there anything else not inside its container here? Let's see. Nope, those are. And really, this doesn't need to be grid items because it's not display grid. Let's do this. Oh, wrong one. We'll do this. The core issue here is that your figure sets an aspect ratio but doesn't account for the height of the fig caption, which pushes the layout beyond the intended height. Got it. So it wants me to absolutely position the images. And put everything inside of a div. Nope, we're not doing any of that. So we're just going to take out the fig captions. There we go. Fair enough. Well, the mockup doesn't have fig captions, so yeah, the mockup doesn't have fig captions, so as long as we have alt text, which will come in here and we'll add alt text. So this is looking pretty good. I'm fine taking out the fig captions. I feel like I feel like I need a little more practice with Grid. Today is my first time using Grid, so I think I just need a little more practice with Grid because I think there should be a way to make a grid with fig captions that don't ruin the layout. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to me, but I understand what ChatGPT is saying by saying because I don't have that really I should have but if the figure is the container, why can't I have an image and a fig caption in the container without ruining the layout? I'm not quite sure about that. It's asking me to do a lot of things here that feel unnecessary, but I think I just need more practice with Grid. I need to do it on more projects to get comfortable with it and find what works for me. Here's what we're going to do today because I have notes. I got up early and prepared. We're going to do a print media query. And I had a little conversation this morning with ChatGPT just to make sure that I wasn't forgetting anything. And ChatGPT did point out a couple of things for me to keep in mind. So that was really good. We're going to write JavaScript first, though, and it's not very much at all. And I did learn something new related to how I have been loading and initializing JavaScript for the last decade. Some modern best practices that maybe I'm the only one who didn't know about. Do me a favor, if you haven't liked the video yet, please go ahead and do so. I would love to be able to push out more content like this to new front-end developers who are interested in learning vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I think we should just go ahead and get started. Let's see here. We're going to write our JavaScript first today because we really need that print dialog in order to do our print styles. So I'm going to add a script.js, and then in our HTML, right after the CSS, we're going to add a script tag with the attribute defer, and then our source is our script file. So here's what I learned today, which I did not know. That so I know what defer means. Defer means delay loading until the DOM has loaded. Now, back in the day, I was always taught to put the script tag immediately before the closing body tag. And in the last year, I learned that it was actually perfectly fine and a modern best practice to put it in the head using the defer attribute, that essentially the defer attribute and loading the script tag before the closing body tag are nearly identical. The difference is that when it's in the head, it can at least begin to download the script.js file, but it doesn't execute it until the DOM has loaded. So then I asked ChatGPT this question. I said, well, if it doesn't execute till after the DOM has loaded, then why do we need document add event listener DOM content loaded, which I've been writing for years. And when I tell you that this is burned into my brain that we need to do this, it is because I started learning development 12 years ago, and I started my career as a WordPress developer. And I learned jQuery years before I ever learned vanilla JavaScript. And in WordPress jQuery world, you always had to initialize your jQuery in something called safe mode. I'm not going to bore you with all of those details, but it just burned it into my brain that regardless of where you're loading that script in your HTML, you need something to initialize your functions or your JavaScript. And it turns out you don't have to do this anymore. It's redundant. It's not wrong. It is redundant. You don't need to do it. So what I am going to do though, at the very top here, is I'm just going to console log. So let me know in the chat. Script has loaded. What do you do? Tell me what you do. I want to know. Do you still do DOM content loaded, or do you just jump right in? I'm curious. I guess the most obvious way to check and make sure this is working is that we will have a console log. Script has loaded. Beautiful. So before I do anything though, I did make a mistake yesterday. Our print button should not be an anchor link. It should be a button. Anchor elements, anchor tags are for links and navigation, and buttons are for actions. So we're gonna switch this up. Okay, so we're gonna add an ID, and I'm just gonna call this the print resume. Actually, I'm gonna give this a class. Doesn't need to be an ID. And we'll go ahead and give this an ARIA label that just says print resume, just like that. So we're obviously going to have to do some styling here, but we'll do that later. Right now, what I really care about is that I have a button, a proper button. So we have our button now in a proper button element. The other thing that I want to do is just add a little dynamic date. So we'll go ahead and do that first. And we have, let's find it. I already put where are you? Here. I put a span with an ID of date. So we'll just say date equals document, get element by ID, date, and then we're going to get the year, which is a new date, and the method is get full year. And then we'll say if date, whoops, if date. So I recommend that you always check to make sure that your element's on the page. If date, then, if date text content equals year. And that will pop that little date right in there dynamically. Boom. We love that. We love it. Okay. And then the only other thing that we're going to do is we're just going to make it so our button triggers a print dialog. And you don't technically need a button to do this. Like you could just right click print and you get the print dialog. But we're going to make a button that does the same thing. So we'll do const print equals document, whoops, document query selector print resume. And again, I always check to make sure that the element is on the page just in case. And then it's going to be print add event listener, and it will be a click event. And it's just window print. And so now we can click our button. It's magic. Look at that. And so the reason I wanted to do this first is because we are also going to use a print media query that changes these styles specific to printing. And of course, when you have a print dialog, you can either print or you can save it as a PDF. And obviously you could, I save my practice. I mean, I words, Angela, I save as PDF all the time, and then I almost always print later, but sometimes I print directly from a web page like regularly. So yeah. And then the other thing that we need to remember is that users have the option to save or print in black and white or color. So these styles are going to be very basic, very print friendly, but we don't need to make everything black and white. Like, we can use CSS to make the images black and white, but we're not required to do that. We can let the user decide for themselves if they want to do that. They've got the option to. So that's it. This is the JavaScript. It's so simple, so simple, delightful. It's delightfully simple. So let's go ahead now and make sure that our button is styled. Where are you? Let's make sure our button is styled, and then we're going to jump into the print styles, and then we'll do some, I think responsive / print styles are going to sort of blend. So we'll do kind of all that together, and then we will test on mobile as well. So here's our button, which doesn't need a whole lot. I'm going to put it up here. And that is just print resume. So we'll say border, none, background, transparent. Well, do we want, yes, transparent. Yeah. Might be all we need to, that's all we need to do. That is all we need to do. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here as well. So here's the actual page size. I feel like there's, we also need a cursor there. I feel like there's some extra space here. Yeah, because the buttons have padding. So I'm going to say padding 0 and cursor pointer. There we go. That all looks even and normal now. I was thinking that I would give it a little more gap. I was going to give, you know, I think I will put this down at the bottom because it's kind of a special style. And let's give this 2 rems of gap. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. So what is the first thing we need to do when we click our button? I think the first thing we need to do is, we don't have any padding here, and we need to reverse these. We need to sort of invert our colors. So I think we definitely need padding on the body. So I'm going to say 0 padding on the top and bottom, but I'm going to put 2 rems of padding on the left and right. And then we'll say at media print body. And we're changing the background color and the text color. And I am going to use, I'm not going to use a variable. I'm going to use black and white. It's part of the CSS spec, so that's what we're going to use. Just like that. All right, so let's see if this actually works. Whoa. I mean, this is wild, right? How powerful this is. I think this is so cool. I'm loving this. Okay. It's just, I don't know. How do you not love front-end development? I just love it so much. So ChatGPT gave me some suggestions. Yeah, the other thing that we need to do is we are using a Google font called Outfit. And this Google, the font printing and saving as part of the PDF depend entirely on the fonts that are installed on that user's computer. So it's not like a website where the fonts load in order to render the page. This is something entirely different. And I think we should all safely assume that nobody that prints this document is going to have the font, the Google font outfit installed on their computer. So we're going to change the font stack. Let's close this. We're going to change the font stack for our print styles. So font family, and I'm going to choose Arial Helvetica Sans Serif. So now you can tell that this is a different set of fonts. So already we're batting 1,000 here. The other thing that we want to do is we want to hide non-essential things. So I would say that non-essential things are the footer for sure. And then what are the other? We don't have any background graphics. People can control the scale. People can control their own margins. Oh, that's interesting. So margin default. Yeah, see, I usually have margins none. So let's take the padding. Well, we still need padding on the body. I don't usually do 2 rems though. So maybe we don't need that much padding if people can control their own margins. But if they have none, we still want to make sure that we're providing some margin. So there's that. Paper size, color, headers and footers. So that's the date and time. And I'm going to say that that's the title, the HTML title. So the user can control that. So if we change our body styles, well, let's say that we definitely want at least 1 rem of padding for mobile. You should have a rem of, you should still have some padding anyways. But we just go ahead and change this for print 0, 1. I'm just curious to see how this looks. So that is with default margin. That is with no default margin. Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it at 1 and let the user decide. Yep. All right, so I'm going to say that we don't even need this here because I'm setting it on the main body tag. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and just hide the footer. We're just going to say display none. And it is a best practice to hide your navigation, your footer, anything that is really interactive. And in this case, we want to give people a really clean printout, right? So let's take the headers and footers off. Yeah, it's looking more and more like a resume. We're going to adjust some of the text sizes as well. And then this was another suggestion that ChatGPT had, is that on all sections we do page break inside avoid, to avoid any weird breaking, which technically it's doing its job. We're going to tighten up some of this typography and the layout, so hopefully we can get everything in there. But that's a good, I mean, I think that's a good call. So all right, so what else do we want to adjust here? Let's just glance. So I think we were probably going to want to adjust this because our font size is pretty big. Let's, this here, that's a base style, and we'll put this up here. And not worried about the margin. Well, we'll take that down a bit. That looks a lot better. We'll take this down as well. That was this. And we're going to tighten up some of that margin also. Oh, it's probably going to, so it's probably going to avoid, if we use it on every single section as a base element, well, we have a lot of margin here. So let's just work on, let's just keep chipping away at it. Let's just keep chipping away at it. Okay. So I think maybe our primary heading could probably make this a little smaller. Maybe take this down to 1.5. And then our grid container has a lot of margin. Let's take this down to like 2.5. Let's just take this down to 1 and see what happens. Yeah, I can tell that that's a little tighter. I think we have a lot of, margin that we need to tighten up. So these are the images, the container. Where's the items? Right here. I think we need to tighten this up as well. Can you imagine doing this for an entire enterprise level website? Wow. I've never used the print media query. This is the first time I've ever used it. So, yep, I can tell that's a lot tighter. Let's tighten up the margin under those H3s, the tertiary headings, right here. Which did we even, I don't think we even specified a margin. Yeah, we're using the default margins. We'll just do 1 rem on the top and bottom. I'm not going to change any of this. I think we could change, we could make this a little smaller. We'll take out the letter spacing and we'll bring down this font size a little. Yeah, that looks a little better. And I think we can bring down this font size also, the H2, the secondary heading. We don't need all of this though. We don't need that. Here's our secondary heading. Not going to change that. I still want this to be a little bit bigger. And well, why do we even, no, we'll keep the margin. No, we don't need margin. Well, if we don't need margin, then let's take it off. There we go. That looks really nice. The problem with this is that so I think maybe we don't want to avoid breaking those sections. Yeah, but let's continue to tighten up this header. And I think it'll be okay. And I think what I'll do is just put a note in here for anybody who decides to use this. Optional to avoid breaking sections. But I'm not going to use it here, but I'm going to leave it in for somebody who wants to. Yeah. Okay, let's tighten up this header. Do we even need padding at all? I don't think so. Yeah, we'll leave in 1 rem of padding for the print styles. So if somebody has none, there is still something there. And then I think our intro text, didn't we have, what was that? There we go. We'll just do 1 here. Because those values look completely different in print, don't they? That looks nice. That looks really nice. And I think it's okay that it breaks to another page. I don't think we need to worry about avoiding that break. We can tighten up this gap here as well. Yeah. I wonder if we want a tiny bit more margin between these sections. Tiny bit more. Maybe 1.5. Yeah, just a little smudge more. Looks good. And I don't think we need to change this layout at all for print. Like, I was thinking that I was going to have to make it be more in line with responsive styles where you drop everything in 1 row and you don't have a grid. And I think as a document that you're printing, this is perfect. This still looks really nice if you come across this web page and you are printing somebody's resume. I think this looks great. Let's tighten up some of the space under this H1, which I already have. Hang on, we already have our primary heading in here. Okay. Oh, I bet that it's the line height, isn't it? That's causing all that space. The line height. We'll just do line height 1 and we'll reduce the margin. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And I don't think that text needs to be as small anymore. I think our text can still be big. There. I love it. I love it. So we still get the impact of that big, bold headline. I don't think I'm going to change really anything else text-wise. Let's tighten up this gap here for the selected projects, though. And that would be the grid images. Yeah, there we go. And then let's tighten up our contact section here. Wow, this turned out really well. I like it. So right now, because all of our H3s here have this date on top, and this doesn't have it, so I am going to add a class here that just says, or we could do tertiary heading has contact email, then we don't have to add a class. So I think we can do MDN. We could use a pseudo class has. That is a better way to do it. Yes, right here, we're going to do this. So we're going to look for a sibling element. So this H3 is going to look for contact email. So let's go here. We'll go tertiary heading. Tertiary heading has, and we're going to say plus contact email. So basically, if the tertiary heading has a sibling of contact email, we are going to say margin 001 rem. So we're basically just going to take the margin off the top. Actually, we should just do that for all of the styles, not just the print styles. Yeah, see that there? That's what we're going to do. We're going to do this for all of the styles, not just the print styles. We're going to put that right there. Except this will go back to being 2. I don't think we adjusted the margin. Well, we didn't adjust the margin at all. It's the user agent style sheet. So there we go. And that kind of tightened that up too, which I think looks a little better. Yeah, it did, because it's rems, not ems. And this pushes this up. It has a lot of line height though, doesn't it? Let's adjust the line height also. So that's 1. That might be that. I think that's going to be too much. And this is pretty normal. I set 1.65 on the body, but I generally end up adjusting the line height for, and hopefully you can see that, for headings. So we can see there that that is a lot more aligned. So we're going to change the line height to 1.25. Nice. And then the last thing I'm going to do is we can remove the, well, we can change the size for sure, but we can remove this color. It's not necessary. Do we even need the word contact? Let's see here. Oh, business inquiries. So yeah, it's just semantics. So we'll just say business inquiries. Business. Business inquiries. There we go. And then we're really just going to change the color and the size, which is right here. So we'll go back to 1rem. And we'll change the color here. Color, black. Wow, what do we think? This is it. These are our print styles. These are our print styles. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this as a PDF. And then look at the PDF and make sure that it works. Projects and resume page. All right. Here it is. I love it. And you could do anything you want with this, right? You could add colors, you could do anything you want with this. And especially the whole color part is nice because the users have the choice in the print dialog. Even at this point, if they save it in color, if they open the print dialog and print, they can still change it to black and white if they want to. And in this case, it really only changes the images. So now let's go ahead and actually print it. Oh boy. And then we'll finish our responsive styles. And I have a couple ideas for like just little user enhancement touches. Let me see. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and print. Okay, hang on. I'll be right back. Okay. So mine only printed. Oh, and it's backwards. Sorry about that. My camera's flipped. So mine printed in black and white. Did we not have? Oh, I did have it in black and white. Okay. Stand by. I'm going to reprint in color. Hang on. I'll be back. All right. And we have color. Yay. Woohoo. This is so cool. Okay. Nice. So we are done with our print styles, which means we just need to do some good old-fashioned media queries to make sure that this is responsive. And I have a couple, well, let's do our little, like 2 little user enhancement things that I wanted to do for the desktop version of this, which is I wanted to do like a kind of a subtle zoom on hover. And I wanted these H2s to be sticky. So let's do that. Let's do that first. So our container is grid container, which I think will need to be position relative. And then our secondary headings will be position sticky. I think that's all we need to do. If I'm wrong, hang on, MDN. Oh, I think it needs to have note at least one inset property. Okay, so we'll just say up 0. So I think in this case, we would maybe want to give our sections a little bit of margin on the top. So it's not right up against, or it might actually need padding. Yeah, it needs padding. No, that doesn't matter. Maybe the element itself does need to have margin. You need to have padding? Tell me what you need. There you go. Thank you. Just tell me what you need. Just tell me what you need. Okay. So that means then if that needs padding to have a little cushion up there at the top, that means that the grid items will also need a little bit of padding. That is completely fine. We can do that. We can do that. I just need to know, help me help you. Help me help you. So we'll do one rem on the top. And we're going to have to make sure that we account for this in our print styles. That's completely fine. And we're going to do one rem on the top here. And that's just so we can match them up. Okay, so that is a miscalculation because now we have 2 sets of padding. We probably want this, the grid items. Yeah, the grid items to have the padding, not the grid container. You still don't look right. There we go. There we go. And we need it on the grid images as well, because that's the container for the images. There we go. Now that's aligned. So here we are zoomed out to like the normal size, and I'm on a big monitor. But yeah, that is just a nice little user enhancement. It doesn't impact accessibility. It doesn't rely on any sort of user interaction. We've got all this space here on the left. Let's use it. Let's use it, right? So let's make sure that we are accounting for that, that padding. down here. So I think we just want padding to be 0, and then grid items. Padding also should be 0. And then our secondary heading padding should be 0. Looks good. Let's confirm. Our styles are still okay. Oops, what happened? Yeah, okay, we just need to change the positioning for our print styles. That's why we check. So I think all we need to do is on the secondary heading, position static. That's all we need to do. Pull it right back out. There we go. There we go. All right. And then let's do just a nice little zoom on our images on hover. Again, has no impact on the user experience. It's just a user experience enhancement. Doesn't do anything on mobile because on mobile we tap, we don't hover. And then it doesn't impact accessibility in any way. So we'll say overflow hidden. And 1. And then we'll transition the transform. I generally do 300 milliseconds, ease in out. And then on our figure image, we will focus, hover, oops, active, and we'll transform the scale to, I don't know, 1.1. And I think we will want to, I don't think this will make any difference on our print styles because the scale all relies on an interaction and the interactions don't happen. There, look at that. Just something soft and subtle, right? Just something nice and subtle. And you could link your projects. Presumably, I didn't do it here. Obviously, you could put screenshots in here. You could link those to your actual projects. Excellent. Those were like the 2 things that I wanted to do. Next, let's make sure that we have a hover state for our social icons. And the hover state can just be this pink color. I'm not going to worry about branded hover states because a lot of the branded colors aren't accessible, and that pink color is accessible. So, and then we'll do a couple of quick mobile styles, which I don't think are going to be terribly complex. So here is our social nav, our social item. And then we have to keep in mind that we have that button right here. So we'll make sure that we're styling this appropriately. So we'll do social item. And this is an anchor element. And we're changing the, I put this below this. We're changing the stroke and or the fill. So this would be when we'll start with focus. And this would be hover. This would be active. And when we hover, when it's focus, hover, or active, then we want to target the SVG, and we want to change the stroke and or the fill, whichever one it is. Oh, what don't you like? Oh, comma. And we'll just do the pink. And then we want to make sure that we have, I think we can just put the transition here. We're going to find out. I'm just going to do keyword all. 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. I don't know if the transition needs to be on the anchor or if it's okay to just have it on the SVG. Oh, it looks like it's okay. And then let's do the same thing for our button, our print button. So here's our button in lieu of the anchor. And we don't need this span because we have an ARIA label. So how much you want to bet we can just do this? There we go. Beautiful. All right. Yeah, so we definitely need some mobile styles. I think it's okay to keep our grid on mobile, but I think all we really need to do is remove the main grid and put the H2s above the containers. I think that's all we need to do. So if we just change this to display block, I feel like that's all we need to do. And we'll take off the, how easy is that for mobile? And then we just need to change the position to static for mobile. So let's see here. When does this start to get a little too squishy? I think we could do 960. That is a safe value. Media. Max width, 960 pixels. And what was that? The grid container? Display block. And I think it was just the secondary headings. Secondary heading, position, static. Remove that sticky. Look at that. We'll tighten up some of this padding. I think we'll tighten up some of that margin too. We have a lot of margin. We could reduce some of the line height on the H3s, but I'm not going to reduce the size. We can reduce the gap here. And we can maybe just let this wrap on mobile, the social icons. Yeah, there's not that much to do. Okay, so we'll change that to 1 rem. And I think we should just change the line height, or add line height rather. So we'll just say line height 1.25. Oh, maybe we want a little extra padding. Yeah, I think that's okay. All right. So here's our header. Padding will be 2 rems on top, 0 on the left and right. And then our primary heading, we will change the line height to 1.25. And line height should be a unitless value. It should be a multiple of your font size. So I think the browser, well, I know the browser will still accept a value, a unit value, but it's really meant to be a unitless value, a multiple. So that looks great. All right, and I think we could probably adjust this text as well. And yeah, I think we can just, our intro text, I think we could probably take that down to like 1.1. So our intro text, we'll do font size 1.1 rems. There we go. And then we'll take this down. We'll just go down to 1. We don't need 5. I think a lot of times mobile is just kind of tightening things up, right? That is all we're doing. Beautiful. Still okay to have a little space there. So here are our secondary headings now. So I'm going to take the font size. Oh no, not for the secondary headings. We still want that. I think we can take off. Actually, no, I still like that padding there. But I think we can reduce this margin. Do we need any margin? Let's take the margin off. I think we can take the margin off. I think we just said margin 0. That's it. And let's tighten up that line height as well. We'll go 1.25. Just works really well. Oh, we already have 1.25. Oh, Angela, you're looking at the wrong thing. I'm looking at the H3s. We don't need to do anything to the H2s. Tertiary heading is next. And I'm not going to adjust any of this additional padding. It all looks great. I'm happy with all of it. I think all I'm going to do for the tertiary heading is tighten up this line height for mobile. There we go. Beautiful. Look at that. And then I think on our grid containers, we'll do the same thing that we did on the intro text container. I'm just going to take that down to 1 margin. One rem of margin on the bottom. And then let's tighten up this gap, which would be our grid images. So we'll just take this gap down to I'm going to do 0.5 rems. Look how tidy that is. It's adorable. It's freaking adorable. Let's move this up. Oh, did I have that in two places? Oops. I did. Okay, hang on. We don't need this twice. Oops. Grid container, and then grid images. It's so cute. I cannot. Okay. And I think that we can just, our email, we can just tighten that up as well. So that is the contact email. Oops. Let's do 1.1. Yeah. Maybe 1.25 because it's special. It's the email address. Yeah, there we go. All right, now what's happening with this footer? We got a lot of padding. I think we can safely bring this down to 1 rem on mobile. And then what's happening with our social nav? Honestly, if we just do, I bet if we just do flex flow, row wrap, it'll take care of itself. We could also tighten up the gap for mobile. I love it. That's all we need to do. I am going to add right here though, flex flow, row wrap. And then for social nav UI, I'm just going to change the gap. Excuse me, UL. Beautiful. Look at it. You guys, it's so cute. I love it. Let's get this deployed so we can actually look at this on our mobile device. And I think that I also had like a couple of typos. I noticed yesterday afterwards that I had a couple of typos. I think I had 2015, yeah, right here. Not a big deal, but you know, a typo. Okay, I think those look okay. Yeah, maybe that was it. And I don't think we need these extra classes because we are not doing branded hover. So I'm going to take those out. Yeah, let's get this deployed and we'll check mobile. Print and mobile styles. And this will take just a moment. In the meantime, I will get my mobile device up and running. All right. And I think that, I think we are deployed. What do we think? I love it. I love it. Responsive, accessible. We have a print media query. What happens when you print on a mobile device? I don't think I've ever even tried to print from a mobile device. Oh, look at that. There it is. There's our print styles. You can print from mobile. No printer selected. I'm not going to print from mobile, but that's how it works. Printer, can you do PDF? Doesn't look like it. Presets, what is that? Oh. Range, print and color, paper size, orientation, scaling, media and quality. It's media type. I've never done this before. Okay, that makes sense. Border, flip. Oh, interesting. All right, well, I'm not going to print. You can't save it as a PDF though, which, is neither here nor there. Let's just check. This is Chrome. Let's just check Safari to make sure. All right, here's Safari. Oh, that's nice. Safari takes the color and makes it the header. Look at that. What is so the print dialog is not specific to the operating system. It's specific to the device, or it's not specific to the browser. It's specific to the device operating system. So that must mean, okay, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. Let's look on desktop, just because it's good to be thorough. It's like Elmo Go said, was it last weekend? You put something in the chat and you said, we are a QA house here. We QA in our house. It was so cute. Okay, let's check Firefox. Because I'm curious now, is the print dialog browser specific or operating system specific? I have no idea. Oh, it's the browser specific. This is very clearly the Firefox, and it's automatically avoiding breaking. It is automatically avoiding breaking. That's interesting. Let's see here. What options do we have? More settings. So the settings are pretty much the same. And it is automatically avoiding breaking those sections. So that reinforces my decision to not include it as print styles. Yeah. Interesting. Format simplified. Oh, look at that. It totally removed, look at how much stuff it removed though. Removed all the images, removed the link, removed my H1, and replaced it with a title, the page title. That's interesting. Print using the system dialog. Okay. All right. I'm not going to do anything, but let's check Safari. I'm not going to adjust anything or make any changes based on this. So here's Safari. Looks exactly the same. So interestingly, Safari is not changing the cursor on links. Links anchor elements by default, if you have hover active focus, the cursor changes, and we specifically changed the cursor for this printer button, and Safari still isn't doing it. That's very interesting. And this is also a print dialog that is specific to the browser. And my portrait and back landscape are backwards because of some printing that I was doing a couple of weeks ago. I know why it's doing that. And it does let you save as a PDF as a separate option here. All right, fair enough. Now we know how now we know how things behave. We know how things behave, right? Yes, we are a QA household here. Always QA people. I love that. You guys, I think this was a smashing success. This was a smashing success. I love it. It goes without saying, this is an open source project. I have everything linked down in the description. If you want to fork this or use it for yourself or your own project, go ahead. I personally am going to be adding this to my own website as a resume page here in the next couple of weeks. I mean, I built it specifically for this reason. And I love it. I just think it's so cool. Everybody have a great week. Appreciate you all. Yeah, I guess that's it. Have a great one wherever you are, and I will see you next week on Saturday morning. Bye-bye.